Friends, welcome back to another Pints with Jack Skype session. This is where each week my dear friend David and I dig into a specific topic from our podcast and we attempt to connect it more to our lives, our spiritual journeys, and have some takeaway. So before I jump in, I want to welcome David to the Skype session. David, welcome.
Thank you, Matt.
I really hope that works out because we've come up with this new intro thing where I do it first and then David slides in. I have no idea if I just look the right way.
We'll find out.
I actually deep down hope that we each look the wrong way, which is only about a 25% chance, but that would be hilarious. And we're both looking the opposite way when you slide in. But anyways, without further ado, in this week's episode on the podcast, there was a lot that went down, but there's a quote that stuck out to me, and I want to get your thoughts on it. So let me start with the quote. Psyche is speaking to Orwell, and Psyche says, "You did not think I have left off loving you because I now have a husband to love as well. If you would understand it, that makes me love you. Why? It makes me love everyone and everything more." And one little piece of context, if anyone here does not know, this is from the book Till We Have Faces. And when she says, because I now have a husband, she's talking about being pretty much in communion with God. And so that's her husband. She's in love with God. And that's what she's referring to here. So David, I have my own thoughts here, but what did you think of when you first read this? What came to your mind?
I think Psyche is trying to point out the fundamental misunderstanding that Orwell has regarding love. Orwell thinks love is a zero-sum game. If I love A, then that means I can't love B. With her, it's an all or nothing. And so she thinks that because Psyche loves the god or whoever this character is, we're not entirely sure at this point, that if she loves this man, then she can't love Orwell. Orwell's love is demanding. She will accept no rivals. And even if she could have a small idea that perhaps there can be multiple loves, Orwell demands that she is number one rather than the god.
Yeah, there's a very strong scarcity of love mindset here. And it makes sense. I think we all can relate to this because we are trained in a world where we are taught things are scarce. Your time is scarce. Your resources are scarce.
Maybe your Reese's are scarce as well. Who knows?
I do love Reese's. So it doesn't surprise me to think love is scarce. And here she's referring to how the divine love actually, when poured into you, allows you to love more, which is hard for her to grasp. And have you read the book A Severe Mercy by Sheldon Vanauken?
I have indeed.
So this made me think of, because I want this to be even more relatable than just some fiction story. In Severe Mercy, he talks about how, first of all, for people, it's a book on a journey of pagan love to Christian love. One of my favorite books, highly recommend it. They're atheists. They absolutely love each other, and that's the love that they hold up as an idol. And then through a journey, meeting C.S. Lewis, becoming professors at Oxford or students, but that's where they meet C.S. Lewis. They
meet him actually in person, not just read his books.
Oh, yeah. They meet him.
They don't meet him in the way that you and I meet.
Yes. We meet him every day in the books, but they met him in person. And in fact, what drew me to the book is 18 letters were sent directly between Sheldon, the author, it's his autobiography, and C.S. Lewis. But there is a point in it where they come to Christianity, and he noticed his wife, Davy, loves God more than she loves him. And that was actually profoundly hard for him to accept because their love started where they even used to call it this shining barrier, where they would put this barrier around their love. And it was actually quite beautiful, but it was a pagan love and it was idolizing it. And so that was very hard. So that's just a relatable example of how we can assume that love can be taken away from us.
Yeah, and in that story, Sheldon is taught to understand how that as great as their love is, as the shining barrier that they put around it, because it must be the thing that's protected above everything else, that actually, no, there are things other than that that should be protected above all. And that he doesn't need to, and probably shouldn't, get into competition with Davy's love for God. And Davy's very love for God will be the thing that makes her love for him even better.
And that's sometimes hard for us to wrap our heads around.
Yeah, because we feel like someone has divided loyalties.
Would you say, because we've been talking about how the love allows you to love more, would you say it's also fair to say when we receive the divine love and we enter into communion with it, like Psyche has done in Till We Have Faces, that we can actually also love just properly, not only more, but properly?
Yes, I would say that the two things, and this was all drawn from the teaching book that's alongside Till We Have Faces, which is the Four Loves. And in there, Lewis says that when the agape love comes, it first of all correctly orders our loves so that we love things in the right way and to the right degree. But that agape love itself widens our loves. It creates our capacity for more affection, more eros, more philia.
It also gives us an ability, I think, to love in a way that we couldn't love before. And I'm actually curious if you think I'm correct here, but I think of the quote that we've probably mentioned before in the podcast: you can't give something you don't have. Well,
it's a Latin phrase, nemo dat quod non habet.
Well,
and as we know, quid Latine dictum sit altum videtur.
Now
Which
you're just showing off.
Well, roughly translated, it means anything said in Latin sounds profound.
Yeah, well, it did sound profound. Mm-hmm. At least they could understand me, though. But you can't give something you don't have. And once you've entered into communion with the divine love is nothing you can experience on this earth. That would be the agape. And now that you have it, would you say it's fair to say you can give this agape? Not quite like God, but to some capacity?
Yeah, it's not that it comes from you, but rather through you.
Oh,
that you are filled with the divine life for the very purpose of passing it on to others, which is one, our highest calling, and two, it's the reason why we need to continually be filled with the agape life. We need to be constantly connected to the fountainhead such that it can flow through us.
Yeah, it makes me think of, I think Mother Teresa once said, use me as an instrument, or something along the lines. She had some analogy of herself in the hands of God. Even Lewis has that analogy, right?
Yeah.
A painter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also the so-called prayer of St. Francis. He didn't actually do this. But the Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. And it's all about, Lord, love other people through me, which is definitely a Franciscan idea.
Wait, he didn't do that? Oh, you're killing me.
If you want to be really disappointed, there's a book by Trent Horn called What the Saints Never Said, and it's basically all of the common phrases and common sayings that you've heard that aren't actually true. And so he basically looks at where these sayings really come from and what the saints themselves actually said.
Oh, I'm definitely not going to read that book.
It turns you into the kind of person that ends up popping a lot of bubbles. If ever I'm feeling vindictive, I just go on the internet and start correcting everybody with their C.S. Lewis quotations. Like, no, didn't say it. Nope, this is Rick Warren. Nope, never said that.
I was about to say that is something, David, I think you might get some subtle pleasure out of. No, but that's what I wanted us to talk about today. It's a really beautiful reminder that when we enter into communion with God, which should be our entire life goal, and as we've learned from the Great Divorce, entering into communion with God is when we say to God, thy will be done. When we allow ourselves to align our wills to his will, when we give our heart to him, he transforms us. We've been talking a lot about that, even in these video series and the podcast. We receive that divine life. We receive that divine love, and we are allowed to go out there and love the world more perfectly and just more in general. And that, to me, if there's not a greater why for Christianity, that's a pretty big one. Why do this? Why give yourself to him? Why surrender your will and your ego? Why die to your old self? Well, who doesn't want to be that person who loves genuinely, authentically, and can pour into people?
And that's why Christ sent the Spirit, so that the Spirit can dwell in us and actually give us the power to be able to do these things. Because by ourselves in our human nature, we're going to keep falling short. And every single time we try and wrestle control back from the Holy Spirit, we're going to screw up again. But it's the Spirit that empowers us to actually be able to love in this way. Because if you think about it, having human affection, human friendships, natural marriages, you're asking for something crazy, because you're asking something amazing to exist between two flawed humans. And, it's only possible by the grace of God. So you want to connect with that as much as you possibly can. And
not to open up another door, but just to highlight that last point you made, in marriage itself, this is a really beautiful thing. And the Spirit has to, Holy Spirit has to come into that marriage, because that's what allows you to love more properly and selflessly, and in like a kenosis. Is that the right word? Self-emptying.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Nailed it.
Look at you.
Look at
I
me.
quote some Latin, you quote some Greek. It's beautiful.
Love it. And that allows you to do that better. And like you said, two flawed human beings, that actually gets pretty hard to love and to put your love in that. But when the Holy Spirit comes in you, which is why marriage we consider it a sacrament, is it gives you that grace to do that. Well, David, thank you as always for your wisdom, and I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to us doing this next week.
Excellent.
Cheers, my
Cheers.
friend.